Hi everyone, welcome back to the RMC Creative Challenge. This is step 3 in the challenge, and today I'll show you how to animate each layer and export your final project. Let's get started. Okay, so now we're going to take all the things we cut out and all of the text and convert them into a video timeline where things are moving and you can change things over time. The first step of that is we need to prepare our layers. This layer here is fine, but these three have a mask, and we need to essentially convert those so they no longer have a mask, which is easier to work with on the video timelines. You have less options and things like that, so make sure that you convert these. To do that, you can right-click or control-click, and you can say Convert to Smart Object. Now, this is destructive, which means that you can't continue to edit your mask. It just basically cements it in stone. So now that particular layer is fully cut out. No longer able to double click and adjust your mask or paint in and out. So I'm going to do that on all my layers. Right click, convert to smart object, right click, and convert to smart object. Now I need to bring up the video timeline. In the Essentials workspace, the video timeline doesn't automatically come up, so you will probably have to open that. If you go up to Window and come down here and check Timeline, it brings up this timeline box down at the bottom. Now I'm going to actually bring this up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. And here you have two options. You have a video timeline or you have a frame animation. For this video, we're going to use the Create Video Timeline option. And now it automatically moves all of your layers into individual lines on this timeline. You can see that I have about 5 seconds here. So you can see this 10 frames, 20 frames. This right here is 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. So this is 5 seconds long. I think we're going to want it to be even longer. Now I can zoom in and out on this frame using this little, you can see the big mountain or small mountain. So I want a bigger mountain. I can zoom in. I can zoom out right here using that little slider, and then I can extend all of these. I'm going to go to about 10 seconds. Now we're going to have to create something called keyframes. Now I'm going to turn off a couple layers just so we can start out with something a little bit simpler. And let's say I just want the to move this one here. This is of course that background layer with the hills up to the mountains in the sky, and we're going to want that to move kind of slowly up to the sky. If I hit this little arrow here, it gives me 3 options. The only one we're going to use in this particular video is transform. Now right next to this line in transform, you can see that there's a little stopwatch, and this means create keyframe. So you're going to enable a keyframe animation. Keyframes are simply points in time where you have certain settings. And then if you have another keyframe with a different set of settings, it transitions between the two. So if I click this, you can see I create a point here at the very beginning of the video. And then I can select a different point on this timeline. Let's say, 4 seconds. And if I hit this little button, I create a second one. And when I'm selected on this keyframe and I move this image, that will add those settings to this one, but not change the other keyframe. So watch what happens when I use my move tool and I click and grab. And if I hold shift, it only goes one direction instead of moving sideways. And I pick my final kind of endpoint. Now, if I turn these two off, you can see really exactly what happens here. I started that keyframe where I had it set originally, and when I hit play, it goes and moves from this spot to that spot. So as you can see, it's lagging, so it's going a lot slower than it actually goes. Make sure you're paying attention. This is 4 seconds long, not that must have been 8, so it must have been about half the speed in order to keep up with the frame rate. Now I can grab this now that it's created and say, oh, actually it's too long, and I can move it to 3 seconds. or I can move it to the entire end of the video. I'm going to move it back to 4, or about 4. And that will be kind of the starting motion for this video. And now I can do that on the other videos, the other layers. So the first one I'll want to do is this. I'll turn back on this hill here. Now I want this one to move, and I want it to line up with this. So I will hit this little arrow to align back. It just automatically aligns, but you can do it manually to create a point at the same point as on this layer. So now I need to move it. So I'm going to, again, grab, hold Shift, pull it down. And we can see how this looks. So I can see a problem here. I need this to move faster than that, just because of parallax. So I can come back here. I think I need to move this up. All right, let's watch it now. Even further. All right, that looks pretty good. I'll do the same thing on this, which is my hiker. I'll turn him on. And then I'm going to go to the end and move him. I want him to move a little bit faster. Even faster than that. So it looks like you're flying up into the air, and the parallax makes it look like that the hiker is moving the fastest, followed by a little bit slower on the hill, and even slower with the background. So to accentuate that, I can come back to the background, and I can extend this out even further. All right. Then we need our last detail, a pictorial detail, and that is the moon. So I want the moon to align with the movement on the background image and end up, well, let's say right there. And then I can come back and my original point and move it out of frame. All right, now let's watch that. That looks great. See how it became kind of aligned with the background? You don't even notice that it's a separate image. All right, now let's add the text. So if we watch this, you'll see that the image moves up, hits a final frame, and then we want the text to slide in, let's say from the top. So if I hit play, it's moving slower than it naturally would after you export. Looks pretty nice. I'd say about 6 seconds is where you want the text to land, so we can watch it for a few seconds and feel like it's really there. So I'm going to turn back on my text layer, which I can rename so I don't get confused. And hit this little arrow here, add a position dot, and say, oh, that's where I want it to land. And let's say I want it to start outside of the frame. At 5 seconds, I add a point here, and then I drag it out of frame. Zoom out a little bit. Okay. Now let's watch that slide in. Nice. Great. That looks good. So once again, let's save it. File, save, just to make sure you don't lose any of that work. All right, now to bring this to the next level, you can actually add audio. And I provided a little music track that I recorded specifically for this. And you can just hit this little arrow next to the audio track and say add audio. comes up with a dialog box, and I can select my music.wave, and it happens to be 10 seconds long. And then when you export, it will have this particular music track underneath in your video. So for my purposes, I want to end up with a video, so I'm going to export it as a video, but then after that, I'll show you how to export it as something else, maybe like a web graphic that you would want to use on a web page. So I'm going to go up to File, Export, and Render Video. Brings up this dialog box, and here I can say Select Folder, and then I can choose which folder I want. I want it in the Photoshop folder. I'll name it whatever I want to name it. Call this one Demo 1. You probably want to name it something with your name on it, or well, whatever the project is. So everything should be good here. You just hit Render. And then it's going to take a minute to render your video. And it's rendered, so I'm going to open up my file, Demo 1. And you can see that this is what it looks like. And you're done. But let's say you want to have a web graphic, something you can put up there that moves but isn't a video, takes up far less space. As you can see, Demo 1 here takes up 16 megabytes, which is small enough to email, but not very small. It actually takes up quite a bit of space. If you want something on a website, you could use it as a, without the audio, but you can use just the moving image as a GIF, or as the creators called it, a GIF, but I like the way that GIF sounds better. And I can, I'll have to turn off this audio track here. That won't come through in a GIF, but everything else will. So I can go up to File, Export, and then I can use what's called Save for Web. And here you'll end up choosing some presets. I might choose something like GIF 128 dithered. So this is actually a huge image for a GIF, so I've just selected 128 dithered. I might do 25% in terms of the total size, which will give us a much more manageable sized image. Much better. And then if I click Save, and if I take my test 2 GIF, and I press the space bar, I've got my GIF. You can also open it with a browser. Easiest way to see an image like that. And there you have it. Go ahead and show us what you've made. We'll put exactly how in the description. Thanks.